5 basic steps. And step one in escaping the debt trap was to consider debt as a hostile enemy against the will of God for your life.
If you ever felt overwhelmed and it seemed like it was impossible for you to pull yourself out of debt and to finally see some cash flow coming in, then you need to watch this. Today, we're going to be talking to an entrepreneur, but one that was able to go from success to failure to success again. And through this experience, he understood what it was like to be drowning in debt and to pull yourself out of it. He has so much wisdom, and he is here to give you the practical steps on getting out of debt and to actually start seeing some real cash coming into your pockets. I'm so excited for you guys to listen to this podcast. If you want to reach out to him, all of his information is going to be in the description box below. Okay, let's get into it.
So on my channel, I always say, what's up, money makers? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Donna Chanel, and we talk about all things money. So today we have, and if you could introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm William V. Thompson. I am a cash flow strategist, and I'm like Diamond. I believe that money is nothing but an idea. And if you're lacking money, it's because you're lacking ideas. We're going to help you out on that today.
Love it. Love it. So I'm super excited about today's video, about today's interview. We're going to be talking about a lot about managing our finances. And like you said, and cash flow as well. So if you could get started with, who are you? What's your story? Why are you even qualified to be talking to us about money today?
Hey, great. Well, hey, Diamond, thanks. My name's William V. Thompson from a little place called Greensboro, North Carolina. And I'm a retired CPA. And when I got out of college, I got a chance to work with a lot of the large firms like your Wells Fargo and other national firms like that. And I saw billions of dollars transferring around. And from that first job, Diamond, I got fired because I did not deliver. The bottom line was that was a wake-up call for me, because though I was a CPA, I didn't understand money. And as I talked to more people inside my church, outside my church, everybody seemed to have the very same problem. They did not understand money. They understood a job. They understood paying bills. And when I saw so many people broke, I just really assumed the responsibility of learning all I can and could about money to help people better help themselves. So really, and my story is I've lost a lot of money. I've made a lot of money. And through losing a lot of money, it's made me wiser and smarter, and therefore to help people that when they're down, to give them a plan or a strategy to get back up and to fulfill the destiny that God has in their life for them.
I love that so much. So if you could, I know this is kind of and I don't mean in a literal sense, but can you define what is money in actuality?
I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, Diamond. Money to me is nothing but an idea. I mean, think about it. 20 years ago, we wouldn't be able to do this, but somebody's idea created that, therefore money created. Whether it be the Zoom, the microphone, the internet, that did not exist. So money to me is simply nothing but an idea. And when people have ideas that solve problems and or meet needs, then what we call tangible money is made manifested. So I always tell people it's nothing but an idea. And if you're lacking money, it's all because you're lacking ideas.
Okay, see, now that's great. And I love that. Where do we find ideas and ideas that will make us money at that?
I'm going to start with this principle here and sort of stretch it out. One of the first things is start with the problems in your life. Because I believe, Diamond, that one of the best ways to create money is, first of all, solving your problems. Right. So if you have, let's say, a credit problem, if you come up with ideas to solve that credit problem, as you know, that's going to create money.
Right.
You solve your debt problem, that's going to create money. You solve your spending problem. So the ideas really should start with you identifying the problems that you have, because I believe this, when you learn to solve your problems, that's how you create money. But like you're doing now, when you learn to solve the problems of others, that's how you create wealth.
That's good. That's really good. So I know that you said looking at our own problems. Now, is there a way that we can look at other people's problems? Because a lot of the times I find that people have a really hard time identifying the things that they're good at doing. And I notice it's because it's so familiar to us. So the things that become really easy to us is really hard to identify of whether or not that is a valuable skill to have, or how can I even identify a problem if I feel like, okay, I don't know what my problem actually is.
Okay. So going back to what you said earlier, I think sometimes we can see other people's problems before ours. So I think if we step back and we look, first of all, at our friends, whether it's online or offline, and find out what our friends are constantly complaining about: not having enough money, not having enough time, relationships are messed up, excessive debt, those kinds of things. And once we understand the commonality that people are going through with problems, then what you have to do is become the expert in that area. So let's say if I'm dealing with debt, I'll use that.
Yeah.
And if everybody's complaining about debt, that's a problem, then you have to make that an assignment that you have. You learn everything you can about eradicating debt, and we can help. You become the expert. And trust me, money will never be a problem in your life when you learn to solve somebody's debt problems.
That's good. That's really good. Okay, so if we had to break this down in a step-by-step process. So okay, now I've identified either I have a problem or somebody else has a problem.
Okay.
Where do I go from there? Then you said education, right? So learning about that issue and the solution to that issue. Do you have any recommendations on how do you do that? Is college necessary to do that? Where do we get this education from?
Well, I believe, Diamond, in a threefold perspective, what I call educational stacking. I believe, first of all, you need a formal education, and that formal education may only be high school. If you're able to read, write, and do adding and subtraction, that's pretty much enough formal education that the average person needs. Then second of all, it's the informal education where you take advantage of things like your YouTube tutorial, online courses, coaches and mentors. They come in and they're going to help you. And then I believe third of all, you get a kingdom education. That's where you learn how to practically apply the word of God to your life. And in summary, Diamond, I think it goes like this. A formal education will make you a living, and that's good. An informal education will make you a fortune, and that's better. But a kingdom education will make you a blessing. And as I tell my 21-year-old daughter, let's put all three together, and therefore you can live a life that you haven't even imagined.
I love that. I love that. So there's a couple of things that I want to pick up from what you said, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself. So I want to pick up on the formal education, and I want your opinion on should people go to college, because you also talk about debt, and can you talk a little bit about student loans and things of that nature, and when is it worth it and when is it not worth going to college? And then secondly, I would love for you to really break down what does it mean to have that kingdom knowledge on building wealth, on money, and what are the key principles in that? Okay,
yeah. As far as going to college, it's one of those things, it really depends. A lot depends on the person. Like my daughter, she's pretty much an introvert. She's not a go-getter like her father is. And therefore, it behooved her to go to college to get a degree. And at the same token, though, she's in college about to graduate, but I'm teaching her how to make money in the stock market. Because see, for my daughter to do what you're doing, that's not her. Gotcha. For her to do courses or ebooks, etc., that's just not her. But she's good at math. So I took her formal education she's getting in college for her love for physics and math. I parlayed that with something called an asset, and that being selling puts. So she loves making money in the stock market. So whether she uses her college education, formal education, or the informal education I'm giving her, either way, she's positioned to succeed.
Love that.
Now, knowing what I know now about me, I still would have gone to college to get the accounting background, to understand taxes and mergers and acquisitions and investments. And now when I talk about those things, I talk about it from a professional perspective and a practical perspective, okay?
Right.
Then the second thing on the kingdom thing is, I think that people fail to understand that God does not say everyone's going to be wealthy.
Right.
However, a central theme is I believe that God wants everyone to walk in the Abrahamic covenant, where they have more than enough. I think you need more than enough. Number one, to take care of God's house. Number two, to take care of your houses. Notice the plurality there, your houses. to take care of the houses of your children's children and to take care of the house of others.
Right.
People get selfish and say, well, I can go on vacation. I have a house. I. But a kingdom mindset says, I need more than just what I need. I have 4 other houses that God has mandated me to have enough to take care of, and I still pay more than my bills on time.
That's good. That's good. I love that. And if I could add to that too, another tip that I find that a lot of people end up skipping is seeking God for wisdom on what you should do. You know, so if you don't have those ideas, I just did a video on, I love with Solomon, where God literally asked Solomon, what is it that you want? Yes. And Solomon asked him, help, you know, give me the discernment to make good, to know good from evil, and to make right choices, and to govern the people justly. And then God said to them, well, because you have asked that, and not for, because you've asked for wisdom and not riches, then I'm going to give you that plus more, and there will never be another, so that there will never be another king like you.
That's it.
And people miss that part too, of just ask God. I don't know what to do. Ask him what you should do, you know? And that's been like a huge shift, I would say, in my business, where instead of running around with, you know, trying to figure out what's my next direction, what should I do? Just seek the Lord for the answer of that. So I wanted to add that to that, because I love the kingdom principle part.
You're right. I concur with that 1,000%.
Yes. So, okay. So what do you say to those people though? Let's say they're not Christian, they don't read the Bible. So how can we translate those same principles over in a way that's worldly, secular, if I could say?
Okay, it's a great question. I think first of all, we have to understand that the Bible, we call it the book of life. Mm-hmm. It's about helping you have a better life. And I would tell to those people who may not believe, like maybe you and I believe in, right, is that there are principles that work for anyone who apply them. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, Proverbs 22:1 talks about how a good name is rather to be chosen than riches. So we simply tell people, no matter who you are, have a good credit. And if you have good credit, there are people that want to work with you. There are people that do deals with you. There are people that will refer you. All you have to do is what? Have a good name. Right. And then also in Proverbs, another practical principle, I think it's 22 and 29, it says, do you see of the man who is diligent in his business? He's going to stand before kings and not meager men. So what do we tell people? Have a business, you work really hard in it, and you'll stand before people that ordinarily you would have never stood before. Okay. Right. And I'll give you one more. I can go on and on. And the importance of working your job. I go back to, I think it's Genesis 30, that Jacob was working for Laban. And Jacob worked so hard in Genesis 30 that Laban, his boss, said these words. He says, I have learned by experience that God has prospered you for my sakes, or prospered me for your sakes. Right. He said, tell me what you want to be paid. What? Because he had worked so good and made his company profitable, Laban said, tell me what you want to be paid and I'll pay you. So we simply tell people, go to work, work hard, help the company make money, and guess what? You'll get promotions that will blow your mind. All of that is both natural and spiritual, and it's practical.
Yes, I love that. That's really great. That's really great. So I wanted to touch on what advice do you have? Because I know you said you have a young daughter yourself that's entering into the market as an adult. There has been, I'm not sure if you're aware, a lot of tension, let's say, between males and women that are going into that adult space. And I find more that there's a lot of men today that feel very lost, and you seem extremely wise. What advice do you give to young men where they feel a little bit confused and they don't know what direction to go into when it comes to building something for themselves?
I would tell those men to find another man who will show you his scars, his failures, and will show you his successes. And by the grace of God, I'm that kind of guy. Because Diamond, what I didn't tell you is that one of my first internet businesses was over probably 15 years ago. Really? The first year, we did $3.2 million.
Really?
Now I'm gonna tell you, I could stop there and people think, oh, he's the greatest guy in the world. But because I got arrogant, I got prideful, my wife and I had invested $500,000 to get it rolling.
Oh,
We lost every dime of it, every dime of $500,000 gone.
wow.
So when I talk to young men, I always tell them my scars. I show them my failures, my disappointments, the dumb things I did. But then I show them, but let me show you how friends helped me up and the Lord helped me up. So I show them not only my scars, but I tell my story of redemption and the importance of having someone in their lives who they trust enough they can speak honestly and candidly. You know a guy named Isaiah. I think you know Isaiah.
Yes.
I said, Isaiah, I said, listen, I want to be your friend. I want to be your coach. Do you give me permission to be honest with you, brutally honest? And when he said yes, I knew we could have a relationship.
Yeah.
So you have to trust another man enough that somebody once said this, your friends love you the way you are.
Yeah.
But your mentor loves you too much to leave you the way you are. And that's what men need is mentors who are, even though they may not be Christians, they're morally and ethically sound in what they recommend.
Yes, yes, that was beautiful. Thank you for that. Thank you. Because I know that it's something very relevant to today for sure. So let's go into your first internet business. Can you talk more about that? What were you selling? What were you doing? Because we need to know how you made that 3.5 million.
It was really wellness products. Again, I went out, and as you know, the importance of building a business requires building a team.
Yeah.
And I found this wellness guru down in Alabama. And this fellow, and again, the FDA had a lot of restrictions, but he could tell you the vitamins and minerals to take. If you had high blood pressure, he could tell you the vitamins and minerals. If you had cholesterol issues, he knew all the vitamins and minerals. And he had a manufacturing facility that could make what's called angstrom size minerals, whereby they really got into the deeper level of your cells. So 75% of the business was wellness, teaching people how to use holistic approach to get the body to heal itself. And the other 25% of it was that of financial literacy. So sort of a 3 John 2 about prosper, be in health as your soul prospers. So we combined wellness and wealth into one package.
Gotcha. Wow, that's really interesting. So now after you went from that first internet business and then you lost everything, what was your next venture that you went into where you were able to build yourself back up?
It was actually a basic accounting firm. I had to draw from my formal education. I knew I could do taxes. I knew I could do business plans. So I actually did an accounting business. Didn't do quite as well because 3.2 million in a service business, a little tougher to do.
Right.
But it allowed me to replace that $500,000 plus some. It allowed me to build up my good name. And it really allowed me to be humble enough that I learned from other people and I developed systems.
Right.
And then once that was in place, I started hearing this thing about the internet and how you young people are online, man, doing these e-courses and had these thousands of followers. And I was like, oh my God. So the last 4 or 5 years, literally, as an old man, I've transitioned from the brick and mortar to online, where all the content and all the stories and all the success we roll together in ebooks and courses to help people who want to help themselves.
Okay, perfect. So I want to segment into that as well. So a lot of times when I talk to people, especially when they are, let's say, above the age of 35, they feel like, I can't do this whole internet thing. I can't do the social media thing. I don't know how to build the courses and this and that, but there's so much wisdom. And I know so many people with just so many talent, skills, and wisdom. And if they would just put that online, they don't understand how big it really can be. So can you speak to what did it take for you to say, you know what, I'm about to learn this. I'm about to jump in with the millennials. I need to figure this out. And what was that process like?
Well, I had to understand that in a brick and mortar environment or old school, no matter how hard I worked, there were limitations.
Yeah.
I could work, let's say, 15 hours a day. And if I made $100 an hour, that's just $1,500. And I'm tired.
Yeah.
And I begin to see, we talked about leverage. So I had to find people who didn't look like me. And what I mean by that, were not in my age group.
Okay.
I had to find everybody on my team, from my tax attorney to my videographer to my marketing people to my content developer. Everybody on my team is less than I am. I could be everybody's parent, and some people grandparents.
Yeah.
So I had to open up to recognize that I didn't know it. Because see, in my generation, you sort of aged up to whereby you were the man, you were the woman.
Yes.
And by the time you're 50, you're supposed to know it all, and the young folks look up to you.
Yes.
Well, I had to recognize that the world had changed and I'd become antiquated. And for me to become relevant again, I needed the insights of someone who, like the sons of Issachar, they understood the times and knew what to do. So these young fellows are making me relevant. Even now, as we're going through this whole platform, I'm careful about not hitting the wrong buttons.
Right. Right.
But the point is, I had to learn from a generation who was relevant about what was happening in the world today.
So you're pretty much saying, even being somebody that has the experience, you need to be teachable as well.
You have to be teachable. Without that, you're going to always live beneath your potential.
That is true. That is so true. So when you did your first digital course, now we're gonna get into that, or even when you first, what came first, the book or the course?
The actual book came first, because remember, that's the generation I'm from, is the hardcore book. And then my team kept saying, you need an ebook. I thought, people like ebooks? I'm used to touching and feeling. Yep, ebook. And then they said, okay, there you got the ebook. Now do the course. What? Do the course? All right, here's the camera, smile and grin. So the hardcore books came first.
Okay.
Then the ebooks, then the courses, and I'm not sure other things they got going on. I don't even know about half of them.
I love that. I love, because you, like you say, you built a team full of younger people who know how to do all of this stuff. And so where did you find your team at as well? Because I tell a lot of people, if you have children, you have nieces and nephews, pull their butts in there and you tell them, listen, I need you to help me work, because we need to get this together. Because that's how me and my mother actually work together like that too. I started off with, I helped her, and I still help her do the entire e-commerce side, and I build everything for her. But she figured out the courses and stuff on her own. But I pretty much built all of that for her. But she, since I was younger, pulled me in like that. Like, she made me help her in all of her business endeavors. So I tell a lot of people, use your kids, but they come back at me and say, oh, my kids don't want to. So, okay, kids is off the list. How do you find a team where you have someone like Isaiah help you?
I think the first thing is be honest with yourself on your limitations. I didn't understand e-commerce, didn't understand internet, I didn't understand digital products, I didn't understand social media, and I could go on and on the things I didn't understand. So when I identified my top 5 items, I had to find people who understood those. And as I found people who understood marketing, I trusted them, they do that. One guy develops my courses. So I had to understand my weaknesses first. And then, like I think John Maxwell said, I then had to staff my weaknesses. I had to swallow my pride, because I'm old enough to be Isaiah's grandfather almost, his grandfather almost. And I'm taking instruction from Isaiah, who could be my grandson. But I recognized that something that I think a guy named Robert Kiyosaki said, he said, is that you need to help your team members make money now for you.
Yes.
And he said, they will build for you an asset that you never could have built on your own. So my team does the heavy lifting, and they built something for me that by myself, I know I never would have built.
Right, right. And just to add on to that as well, another thing that I've realized when it comes to leadership, because then people will say, well, I tried to hire so-and-so and it didn't work out. I had to realize, as I'm building a team, if my team didn't do what my expectation was, it was a failure on my part as a leader, because maybe I didn't communicate well. Maybe I didn't spend enough time in the training portion of it as well, because nobody can execute your vision like you can. So you have to give people detailed instructions and let them know exactly what it is that your vision is. So don't give up on people the minute that maybe they didn't meet your expectations. See, did I fail as a leader and not, do what I was supposed to do correctly?
Yeah, excellent point. Good wisdom. Good wisdom.
Yeah. With that being said, how are you getting your sales? So are you on social media? Are you marketing yourself as a content creator? How are you getting people to come over to your products?
Good deal. The biggest ways, we do have an extensive database, the old school emailing and texting system. We
Yes.
built that over the years. So a lot of the sales come from that. And probably the thing that has done the best for us has been YouTube, in that we have a lot of videos, not in comparison to one that you all have, but we have videos where people can get to know us, feel like we know what we're competent in. So between our email database and some webinars that we do and YouTube, that's by far been the large way we've moved products online.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So where do you stand on subscribers right now on YouTube, if you know the number roughly?
Don't have a lot. Don't have a lot there, because again, we really have not focused so much on that. Our focal point has really been to digitalize our products, so that once we did roll out or meet the right people, we had enough products and services in turn that would make a difference.
Well, you know, the reason why I asked for the number is because I love the fact that, like you said, you use YouTube, even if you don't have a lot of subscribers, to still bring traffic in, because people think that you need to be, you know, to have the 100,000s and so of subscribers in order to make money on the platform. So they stop themselves. But I'm like, as long as you are getting yourself out there, putting your, because nobody can purchase your product if they don't know who you are and they don't know that it exists. So in whatever way that you could do that, you should. So well, I know you probably got the inspiration from your team. What kind of videos are you doing on YouTube? What is transmitting over well?
The educational part and the easy to understand terminology, because I have friends of mine that are CPAs, and sometimes they talk about things I'm not sure what they've just said, and I'm in that profession. But you know, looking at the common person and giving them practical step-by-step on how to do it in an innovative way, that has translated over, because sometimes when you talk about the stock market, that can be really intimidating. But the stock market is not that complicated if you want to simplify it, or maybe even flipping a house. I mean, I can really go way and make it sound like, oh my God, I need a PhD. Most things in life are not that complicated, but for me to charge you thousands of dollars a consultation, I have to make it sound complicated. So we're all about educating and empowering people so that they, along with their team, can build generational wealth.
That's great. That is really great. So I love that you said the practical side and really doing the step by step, because a lot of people are at the bare basics, and we can't assume that people know at the level that we know. And I think that we make that mistake where we start trying to teach people at our level and not at their level of understanding of where they are. And as I was going through your course, I noticed that you made it very practical, very simple and easy to understand. So can you talk more about your course? What was the goal of it and what we can learn from it?
Okay. The course I'm assuming you're referring to is Escaping the Debt Trap.
Yes.
In that, the goal was to give people hope. I meet so many people that make six figures and are well-educated, and some working 3 and 4 jobs, but they have lost hope. They don't see tomorrow being any better.
Right.
So I took my personal experience of being in debt, been there, done it, etc., and I wanted to give them a simple game plan on how to eradicate debt. But my approach was a lot different. And what I mean by that is, you'll notice in everything we do, we normally have 5 basic steps. And step 1 in escaping the debt trap was that you, first of all, have to consider debt as a hostile enemy against the will of God for your life. And to my remembrance, I've never seen anyone approach it that way, because people were comfortable with debt. You know, they were telling me, well, I have a nice home, but I pay it on time. And I have student loans, but I pay them on time. I have car. And they were telling me all the things, but they found consolation in, but I pay it on time. Because they did not see it as a hostile enemy. Really, now, I mean, they had grown comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. So like the man by the pool of Bethesda. So step 1 was to get people to hate debt and to see that debt was taking their will, it was taking their worship, and it was taking their wealth. And
Wow.
when people, first of all, understand what it's taking, then now when you get mad at debt, then now you're ready to go to step 2 to start attacking it.
That's good. That's really good. So what's step 2? So when it comes to attacking it, how do you attack debt?
Well, the first thing you do is you have to stop adding to it. And we say this, that plastic surgery cannot begin, I'm sorry, financial healing cannot begin until after the plastic surgery. And
Mm,
what that simply means is the next one really is go to a cash/debit card system only. Stop using your credit cards. Stop using them.
yeah.
Again, I did say back in the old school, before we had the debit cards, it was cash only. Now
Mm-hmm.
we're saying use cash and debit cards. Don't use your credit card. And the reason is most people are not disciplined enough to charge it and pay it off.
That's
Charge it and pay it off. And secondary, imagine going to a store buying a suit that's $1,000. With
mm-hmm.
a piece of plastic, it's like charge it. But if I have to reach in my wallet, assuming I have that money in there, and give you 10 $100 bills, that's like two.
Yeah.
I feel the pain.
Yeah.
But when I can pull out that American Express, $1,000, I feel nothing but great joy. So the
Mm.
second step was move to a cash/debit card system only is step 2.
So with that being said, how do you build credit on that type of system?
I love it. What I recommend is I do believe in building credit, and I do believe that you can use it responsibly. So
Mhm.
I may in turn have one credit card that I intentionally use for my gasoline, but I pay it off. I have another credit card that I use maybe for my groceries, but I pay it off. I
Right.
have another credit card I use maybe for household things, but I pay it off. I have learned, and I'm definitely not the credit expert, but I've learned that about 3 to 5 credit cards are the sweet spot. So
Mm.
have 3. It'd be great to have an American Express, a Visa, MasterCard, and maybe a Discover. If
Right.
you use those responsibly to build your credit, because later on we're going to show you how to max your credit. Use them responsibly, but everything else, make sure you pay cash and move on.
No, that's really good. And I know working with my mom, she does the credit stuff. And
All
the
right.
biggest problem that most people have is it's a cash flow problem. It's
You're
simply
right.
they purchase things that they couldn't afford. And I love when Jay-Z said, if you can't buy it twice, you can't afford it. Okay.
I
So
love it. I
if
love
you're
it.
about to go swipe your card on something that you can't purchase twice, you cannot afford it. So
That's correct.
that has been the biggest problem. If you don't have it in your bank account, you don't buy it because then you
Well
can't
said.
pay it
Love
off.
it. Good deal. Great, great. And then step 3 down that we talked about, if I
Yeah.
may, is we talk about now controlling spending.
Mm.
See, you have to sit down and see the world has tricked us into thinking that budgeting is a bad word.
Mm-hmm.
The world tells us that budgeting doesn't work. Budgeting restricts you. Budgeting takes all the fun out of life. But I heard my pastor say one time, he said, a spending plan is simply a plan of action that allows you to get the maximum result from your present income.
Right.
So when we help people do a spending plan, we say, okay, let's include your debt, then your living expenses and your life. Have dating money there, have travel money there, have clothing money there, but make sure you live beneath your means for this season. And just like most people know their age and their address, know what we call your financial number. And that's what you need on a monthly basis to live an enjoyable and comfortable life. No beans and rice here, okay?
Yeah.
But we want you to definitely make sacrifices to get to the next level. But you have to control spending and stop adding to your indebtedness.
That's good. And I know you as an accountant, you did what's called like the T charts and the expenses and income charts. That might be a really valuable digital product for you to be able to sell so that people can, keep in track with their debt and figure out, because a lot of people don't know, well, where do I start first? Maybe you start at not going to Starbucks every morning or, and looking at your food expenses and things like that. Because like you said, you can still enjoy your life. You can still go on those dates. You can still go on vacation if you manage throughout the year. And we don't realize how much we're spending on little things like on our DoorDash and everything else. you know, until you really go into your bank account like, oh my God, I spent that much this month there, you know. So what would you tackle first? Where would we first look at to start decreasing our spending?
Well, I think the first thing I would look at is going to be those lifestyle things. I would start with my streaming services. The average person probably has 3 or 4 streaming services. Now, I have 2 of them, and I use them, and both of them I own stock in the company. So thumbs up.
There you go. There you go.
But I would start with streaming. Then I will look at things like my cell telephone, my services there. Then things like my car insurance. And okay, Diamond, here's a big one. You're eating out. You're eating out. Most people, if they cut their eating out in half, they'd have substantial money. And on step 4, Diamond, we teach a simple principle called debts. And then the E in debts, it's called expenses. We encourage people to do what's called the 10-10 principle. Look at 10 ways you spend money and develop a plan to reduce 10 ways, $10 a month. That's $100 a month initially. Then in 2 months, go to 10-20. That's 200. Most people have between $200 and $500 a month in their expenses, not their debts yet, but their expenses that they could cut and or reduce without cutting the quality of their life.
Right. That's true. And so, okay, so now once we've gotten to budgeting and saving, you're a big advocate for investment. At what point do we know that we can invest, and also how much can we afford to invest?
I think the very first thing, Diamond, as you continue to eradicate debt, is to develop a spending plan where you have positive cash flow. And what I mean by that is, you know, if I have, let's say, 5,000 coming in, let's say for my net payroll check for right now, and I've got my expenses down to, let's say, 4,500. So I got 5 coming in, 45's going out. So therefore, my cash flow is 5,000 every month. And I know that's a real number, Diamond, because if I'm disciplined enough, every month my savings goes up to $500.
Right.
See, that money disappears. I'm not sure where it goes. It's on paper. If you don't sit in the bank, then that's not a real number.
Right.
So let's assume that each month you're saving 500. Well, as always, I'm going to recommend, first of all, let's start with your job. I say, let's max the match. It's old school, but if your job is matching 6% of what you make as a match, so 6%, let's say, of your 5,000 is 300.
Okay.
If you put in 3 and your job gives you 3, let's start there. And let's understand it before we undertake it. So that's my starting point. Then, Diamond, with the other, let's say 500 positive cash flow, I would probably take at least half of that and invest in a good, maybe an ETF/mutual fund. I would do that. And the other, I may just set aside in a boring savings account, or even what I call an emergency fund or opportunity fund. But between my 401k and like a S&P 500 index fund is always a great starting point for anyone.
Okay, that's really great. Thank you for that. And on top of that, on top of investments, you clearly already have a business as well. So what do you say to people that are working their 9-to-5 jobs and they also want to invest into creating a business? How do they navigate that when they also have the regular day-to-day things that they have to do, like taking care of their family?
Great question. I have found there's probably 2 major obstacles to starting a business beyond the money.
Right.
It's number 1, discovering their passion. And second of all, life management. And here's a principle that we see so many potential entrepreneurs fall prey to. It says this: people's lives are so mismanaged that they appear to be busy, but they accomplish nothing. This creates frustration and a sense of hopelessness. So you know, we talked about that the 2 major obstacles normally are, number 1, discovering their passion, and number 2, life management. And we tell people this: if you really want to start the road of creating cash flow to build wealth, first of all, discover your passion, and then take the time, make the time to learn everything you can about it and become the expert. You will never have to worry about money. But it takes, number 1, I have to discover my passion. Not, oh, I like writing, I like working out, I like doing hair. What are you so angry about in life that you resume the responsibility to change it. So you discover your passion, you manage your life where you're learning everything you can about selling puts and everything you can about social media marketing, everything you can about coaching.
Yes.
Till you become the expert. If you commit to doing that, money follows ideas. Because like I said before, money is nothing but an idea. And if you're lacking money, it's because you're lacking ideas.
That's so good. That's so good. Yes. So now when it comes to, let's say, stock investments, how do we know what are the best stocks to invest in? I know that that's like a deep topic to sort of get into, but just like on a large scale, how do we know when we can afford to start going into stocks, and also what stocks we should be investing into?
Okay. Good deal. Good deal. Well, first of all, getting started, I normally recommend most people do what's called an ETF, an exchange traded funds, with simply a breadbasket of stocks. And I would start there because you can go into like the S&P 500, and I can get my Apple and my Amazon, et cetera, all together. But let's say I'm now ready for individual stocks. I tell people like Warren Buffett simply says, invest in what you understand and what you use. Okay. You think about the Googles, you think about the Amazons, you think about the Microsofts, you think about maybe some Teslas, but it needs to be something. And I tell people right now, to me, one of the best stocks to invest in is going to be an Amazon. I love their business model, and think we all benefit from Amazon. You know what I mean?
Yes. So, and they're not going anywhere.
And you're right about that. But definitely invest in something that you understand and that you see has a future. Amazon has a future. Don't healthcare is too complicated for me. Energy with all this oil and lithium, I don't understand that. But invest in what you use every day and you understand, and that's always the starting point.
That's good. Now, what do you say that the starting investment is? Is that, should you put $100, $10? What does that look like?
It all goes back to your cash flow. And I go back, let's say in the early example, if a person has $500, what they call disposable income, as you educate yourself, of course, remember you're putting into your job 401k, so you got to select the stocks and funds there. Right. But then let's say you take half the 250 and you're able to buy shares of stock. And the great thing now, Diamond, is things have become so sophisticated, you can buy fractional shares. Like now, Apple's selling for almost $200. If I start with 100, I can buy a half a share of Apple every month. So again, start with the fractional shares, start with the ETFs, but the biggest thing, start. And I believe this, understand it before you undertake it. Yes. If you can't explain to me what this company does to make money, why are you investing the Father's money in something that you do not understand?
That's a good gem right there. I also wanted to ask, okay, so we want to invest into the things that we use every day. And I love what you said about Amazon, because that was one of the first things that I invested in, because I was like, well, I use Amazon every day, to be honest. And I love that you said only invest into something that you can understand, right? So moving forward, do you have any type of courses when it comes to investing, or are you doing any types of teaching on that?
Yes and yes. Right now we're ending the year strong with escaping the debt trap. We want to get people out of debt.
Yes.
And then we're going to roll out the early part of the year something called selling puts. Okay. And let me give you my 5 steps on that. Selling a put is where you see a stock that you like, let's say like an Amazon. I think Amazon is around $145 a share now. Okay. Yeah. You would then sell someone the right to make you buy Amazon, let's say at 120. It's going for 145, but you're selling them the right to make you buy it at 120. You get paid what's called a premium. You get paid for selling someone the right to make you buy stock at a lower price.
Right.
So I love it because 1, it's cash flow. 2, if the stock stays the same, I make money. If the stock goes up, I make money. And if it goes down less than about 15 to 20%, I still make money. So selling puts is coming out because it's something that people can do with different dollars amount. and regardless of which way the market goes.
I love that. I love that. So I'm really excited to learn about that even for myself, because I know we talked about that before. Now, when it comes to, let's say, just the basic investing, do you use any particular apps like Robinhood, Stash, anything like that?
Well, believe it or not, I don't. Again, I'm old school, but I actually used to be TD Ameritrade, but now it's Charles Schwab.
Okay.
And I like that because they just purchased TD Ameritrade. I love their platform because what it does, and I'm not that familiar with the Robinhood platform itself, but I love what Charles Schwab gives me, and that it gives me analyst analysis. Because there are people out there who make millions of dollars, and it's their job to provide guidance at what's the stock worth. So I'm able to access that platform, and some of the top analysts can tell me, like now, they're projecting consensus on a general basis. They're projecting Amazon to do 175.
Wow.
So because and they're the top fellows with all. So I already know in my mind it's no guarantee, but the likelihood of Amazon hitting 175 is real. So therefore, they give me the tools to do my strategies based on what the professionals are saying and my personal analysis also.
Awesome. Awesome. So closing out, is there anything that you want to leave off with? Like if there was two main things that you could say to people, what would that be?
The two things I would say is, number one, invest in you. That's it. Invest in your financial literacy. God has graced my wife and I financially, and a formal education did it, but it was my informal education and it was my kingdom education that allowed us to build generational wealth. So number one, invest in yourself. And I would say, second of all, better manage your life. Everybody I meet, Diamond, saying they're too busy to make extra money, too busy to learn, too busy to know. Slow yourself down and do what I call have a date with your future. Set aside 1 hour a day that you shut the world off. You're not praying, you're not surfing the net, you're simply learning something and you're putting it in writing to develop a system. So that'd be what I would say is, number one, would definitely invest in you. And number two, learn to manage your life. And unlike most people, with your life, your time is like money. You can waste money, you can spend money, or invest money. Time is the same way. Do more investing than you do spend or waste. And you'll look around next year, this time, and will not believe where you are financially.
Thank you so much for that. Like, you're so wise. This was an amazing conversation, and I even learned a lot from our conversation here. And I want to let everybody know who's viewing that every resource that we mention is going to be in the description box below. So we're going to have your book, we're going to have the courses and everything else, and where to find you on social media, and also how to get in contact with you. That will all be in the description and also in the comment section below. So I want to thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your wisdom with us. So thank you.
Diamond, thanks for the opportunity. Have a great day.
Thank you.